All right, so let's pick up where we just left off. And before we actually dive in to handling the hard stuff, I want you to pull up, it's in your folder here, it is the Burgundy wine map from Wine Folly there, okay? And I want you to pull it up as we work through this. So recall, right, you have the map of France, and then you have Burgundy, and then you click, then you have Burgundy, and then click on this map, okay? All right, so this is a more intense viewing of the various subregions within the region of Burgundy, okay? Now, bear with me here, okay? And this is, again, one of the, I think, really rewarding and lively conversations as it relates to terroir. So please, I'm not kidding here. Pull up this map. It'll be much more helpful to follow along this way, a little more interactive. So I'm looking at it right now as well. So terroir it goes so far to say, okay, that even regions within regions within regions all have a distinctive terroir as it relates to that sense of place. And again, place meaning everything that goes in to that expression of that particular grape. And in our case here, either Pinot Noir or Chardonnay. Okay? So let's look at this, okay? So pull up that map and let's kind of look at the top of the map here, okay? In the pink reddish section, okay? And in the fine small print, I want you to find, where I just had it. I want you to find what it says, Côte de Beaune. So COTES-DE-BEAUN. Okay? Actually, this is much easier. I apologize. Okay? Right below it, look at Pommard. Pommard. Okay? And then right below that is Volnay. Volnay. I want to stick with Pommard and Volnay here for a second. Now, when looking at this map, and again, as we kind of get interested in terroir, those are two different subregions within Burgundy. And on a wine label, you will see Côte de Bourgogne, or Vin de Bourgogne, wine of Burgundy. And then you might see Pommard. Okay? So Burgundy, Pommard, and then you are drawn to this region right here. Okay? You might also see another wine that says Vin de Bourgogne, okay, Volnay, and you're drawn to that region right below Pommard. Now, interestingly, the question becomes, both of those subregions grow Pinot Noir. Okay? Both of those are growing the exact same grape, and they're not far. This is like not even Moscow to Pullman. This is University of Idaho to downtown. This is University of Idaho to One World Cafe. Okay, like they are like right next to each other. This isn't like miles and miles of stretches here. They are right next to each other in a very, very small, not a huge geographic change. They both produce Pinot Noir. Okay? And let's just say last year, 2020. They picked their grapes, let's say, on the same day. In mid-September. Okay? Let's say the winemaker in Volnay makes their wine similarly to the winemaker in Pommard. Let's say they use the same aged oak barrel. Okay? They age it for the same amount of time. The wines are going to taste different. Why is that? Okay? Why is that? And this is where conversations of terroir start to really matter. Is because, right? Like if terroir is a sense of place, and if it is this placeness that encapsulates everything that's gone in for those various expressions of the grape, then even though Pommard and Volnay are right side by side, and their winemaking characteristics, their winemaking techniques rather, are almost identical, Pinot Noir produced from Pommard, from the exact same year of grapes, and the Pinot Noir produced from the Volnay, produced from Pinot Noir grapes of the exact same year, are gonna taste different. Okay? Why? And this is where, again, terroir really starts to kind of play a role in our conversations of understanding what it is we're experiencing. Okay? That maybe, just maybe, like, and this is where it's like crazy to kind of think about, that maybe, just maybe, there was a little bit more of precipitation in Pommard than in Volnay, and then that influenced the taste of that grape, right? The expression that that grape offered, those grapes, would come to offer. Or maybe there was a long fog in Volnay that didn't hit Pommard, even though they were side by side, right? Or maybe the grapes are planted a little bit deeper in Pommard, so therefore they can get more moisture up to the vine. Right? Maybe, and this is like where it's like crazy, I think, maybe, let's say Pommard, okay, a winemaker in Pommard picked her grapes at 2:30 in the afternoon on September 15th. And a winemaker in Volnay picked their grapes at 3:30 on the same day in September. Does that matter? And does that contribute to distinction and difference? Okay? And if so, again, all of that is kind of encapsulated with this notion of terroir. Okay? And so you can see here, again, kind of like looking at this map. And actually, this is kind of an interesting little anecdote there. So notice here, Chablis. Okay? And some of you might be familiar with this word, or maybe you've heard this word before, Chablis. Okay? Some New World producers, and you know what New World means, okay, will put Chablis on their label, but it's incorrect. Okay? Because again, Chablis is a region in France. And in Chablis, they grow Chardonnay. So if you see an actual Chablis, it is going to be 100% Chardonnay. Now, something that's really interesting about, this is going to sound kind of crazy, about Chablis is that it's famous for having kind of a chalky minerality to the wine. Okay? Like chalky minerality, and that's because there's a lot of limestone in Chablis. There's a lot of limestone in the soil. And in particular, a couple of years ago, I was in a wine shop, and this owner had a giant rock behind the cash register. And I was like, what's going on there? And he's like, well, this is a rock from Chablis. Okay? And we did this. This is going to make me sound really crazy, but he got out a little bottle of Chablis, poured me a taste. I smelled it, and he's like, smell this rock. And I'm like, I'm not going to smell a rock. And he's like, smell this rock. And I smelled the rock, and he's like, smell the wine. I went back, smelled the wine, and I was like, holy moly, right? Like, again, thinking about how so much goes into what one experiences with particular wines is really remarkable. That wine smelled like that rock, okay? And in particular, and I just it was just kind of like I'd heard of terroir, and I'd heard people using that word, but I feel like that was one of my first real experiences of like recognizing it, noticing it, and saying that this wine would not taste the way that it does were it not for the soil and what occurs in this particular climate of Chablis. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to pause here, and then the next video I'll dive into handling the hard stuff. But I'll dive into handling the hard stuff and some of the article there on terroir. But I hope that this was helpful. I really do, because I think that it's so interesting. Because again, the French and others will be so the French and others will be so interested and how about this? Will be so interested and passionate about kind of these distinctions as it relates to kind of the differences from a Pommard and a Volnay. And to that end, I'm actually, just bear with me, please. Washington wine region map. All right, one moment, please. Which one do I like? This one's good. All right. So also, I will drop this in your folder. But please pull this up. Okay, pull this Washington wine region map up real quick. Okay, and in particular, you can see that's not so we border, right? We're right next to Pullman there. And in particular, when we look at this Washington wine map, okay, you can see the outline of like the dark kind of light brown kind of khaki color. And that is the greater Columbia Valley. So when you go to a wine store and you buy something, again, even fairly inexpensive wines from Washington State, you'll see Columbia Valley. And what that means is that those grapes were grown somewhere in that greater Columbia Valley. Okay? Now, as you get a little closer and pay a little bit more attention here into this map, okay? Sorry, it's pulling up here. I want to make sure that I get it all correct. Come on, yeah. All right. As you pull this map up a little bit more, I want you to focus kind of in the bottom central part of the map. And here we see Horse Heaven Hills. And then right above it, we see Red Mountain. Okay? Now, what I'm drawing your attention to is, again, those are distinctive areas, almost like sub-regions like I just explained in Burgundy. And on various wine labels from Washington State, you'll see, let's say, Woodward Canyon. It's a pretty famous producer in and out of Walla Walla. And you'll see a Woodward Canyon 2016 Cabernet Sauvignon from Red Mountain. Okay? That means that the grapes in that bottle came from that tiny location right there, okay, in Red Mountain. Or you might see Woodward Canyon Merlot from Horse Heaven Hills, meaning that those Merlot grapes came from that exact region right there next to Red Mountain. But we can still ask similar and I think rewarding questions here. But let's say, okay, I've got the same priced Merlot. We'll stick with Merlot. I've got the same priced Merlot. Okay? Let's say even from the same producer. So these grapes are processed in the same facility. The winemaker is overseeing the production, right? But let's say, the winemaker's overseeing the production, but a batch of Merlot grapes is from Horse Heaven Hills, and a batch of grapes is from Red Mountain. Okay? Again, picked at the same year, processed at the same facility, run by the same winemaker. And she makes, let's say, the wine in a similar style. Okay? Will those wines taste different? And if so, why? Okay? Arguably, with regard to the same conversation we just had about Burgundy, you can make an argument here, right? Even though Red Mountain and Horse Heaven Hills are right by each other, right? Like this is a Moscow-Pullman situation. Their sense of place and their placeness is going to be different, right? And so those expressions of what you experience in that bottle of wine might and should taste a bit different. Even though they're back-to-back, they're made by the same winemaker, she's making them in the style that, again, is going to be similar, but they were just grown in two different regions and have experienced two different terroirs. Okay? And so I bring this up again just as an observation as it relates to how to kind of like think about maybe nuances and differences in and with wine. Okay? All right. Kind of went a little longer there than I usually do. But I'm going to pause and we'll dive into seeing what handling the hard stuff has to offer us to continue this conversation.